This is our joint meeting of the City Council, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, Public Finance Authority, Public Utility Authority, Housing Authority, Paris Joint Powers Authority, and the Paris Community Economic Development Corporation of the City of Paris, this Tuesday, November 29th, 2022 at 6:30 PM. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Corona,
Here.
Councilmember Rab,
Here.
Councilmember Rogers,
Here.
Councilmember Nava,
Here.
Mayor Vargas.
Here, thank you. And as we have been doing for quite some time, we are zooming in this evening. We've gone over those rules quite some time. If you are zooming, we'd just like to speak, please raise your raise hand button, and that'll signal the host that you'd like to make a public comment. Item 3 is our invocation, which will be led by Pastor Dan Bell of the Temple Baptist Church. If you'd please stand and join us and remain standing for item 4, Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Malcolm Corona.
Will you please bow your heads as I pray? Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening thankful for another day. We praise you for your faithfulness towards us, and as we've just spent time this past week specifically giving thanks for your abundant blessings, we ask that you'd help us to not just give thanks once a year, but help us to live each and every day with a spirit of gratitude. Too often we take for granted the blessings that you provide for us, and God, we don't acknowledge those blessings as coming from you. So forgive us individually and corporately, as a city, county, and nation, for not being more thankful. And now we ask for your blessing upon this meeting. We thank you for these, your servants, who you have seen fit to place in these positions of leadership. We ask that you grant them wisdom and discernment to make decisions that would both honor you and that would be beneficial to the city of Paris. Help us to not trust in our own understanding, but to lean on and depend upon you to guide us. I specifically pray for a spirit of unity among the council members. And lastly, we want to take just a moment to pray for our city. God, we ask for your protection for all of our first responders. May your hand be upon our sheriff's deputies, firefighters, and EMT personnel. We honor their bravery as they literally put their lives on the line for the protection of our citizens. And as they protect us, God, please protect them. Now, most importantly, we ask that the name of Jesus Christ would be honored, glorified, and magnified by what happens in this place tonight. For you alone are worthy, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor, for a real good, diverse invocation there. Quick question, Pastor Connor Smith, is he no longer there? When did the transition happen? June 1st. Oh? June 1st. Well, welcome. We'll have to get together for a greet and meet. Absolutely. Very good. Okay, item 5 is a report on closed session. We had no closed session this evening. Item 6 is presentation announcements. We have none. Item 7 is our Youth Advisory Committee communication, which will be given by Jasmine Lomelli, our Vice President. You think there was a Dodger game going the way we're going this fast?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and City staff. Good evening. Hello. My name is Jasmine Lomelli, and it is a pleasure for me to hold the position of Vice President for YSC. I will be providing you with an update on the most recent and forthcoming YSC events. To start, YSC will provide assistance at the tree lighting and Winter Wonderland on both Friday and Saturday. We will be engaging hands-on in the snow pits and assisting the community as necessary. We are anticipating this occasion to volunteer in this event that brings so much joy to our community. Furthermore, on December 10th, YSC is looking forward to this year's Christmas parade. We plan to promote cheer and joy while riding the city's Kodiak. YSC will also aid with gathering all the equipment and properly storing it. YSC continues to take pride in being a visible presence at city events. Apart from the updates, YSC would like to bring attention to National Runaway Prevention Month, a public awareness campaign aimed at shedding light on the experiences of runaway and homeless kids, which are too frequently ignored. It is also a chance to highlight the options available to help adolescents in distress around the country. Individuals, organizations, and communities around the country collaborate as part of the movement to prevent adolescents' homelessness. If you are a runaway adolescent seeking resources, please contact 1-800-RUNAWAY or visit the Statler Youth Center for more options. Finally, YSC would like to remind everyone to please follow us on social media at Paris YSC for more updates and upcoming events. For more information on YSC or any events discussed today, feel free to dial the Statler Youth Center at 951-435-7230, extension 400. YSC would like to remind everyone to remain safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Item 8 is our public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, sir. Rob Mason.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and staff. I'm Rob Mason. I'm here with the Paris Chamber of Commerce, just with a few events that are coming up. We'd love to see you guys come out. Also, anyone who's here, we're open to the public. So we have 3 events. One is the Perk Up Mixed Coffee Mixer next Wednesday, the 7th, starting at 8 a.m. It's always a good time to meet people in the community and also business leaders. We have our annual Jingle Mingle event, which is pretty renowned. So definitely don't want to miss that. Bring a little money with you. Always makes a lot more fun, and it's a good time. So I won't say anything about last year, who stole my bids each time. I'm looking right at them, though. Anyway, hopefully you guys come out. That's going to be at the bomb shelter beginning at 5 p.m. on December 15th. And then the part of the City of Paris Parade on December 10th at 10 a.m. Will be in accordance with the city. The chamber will be announcing the entries from the Southern Hotel. So that's our announcements. Hopefully we'll get a chance to spend a little time with you guys and enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Where's the Perk Up Hour going to be at?
Excuse me?
The Perk Up Hour, where's that going to be?
It is going to, you find that really, Paris Valley Church.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That is all.
Thank you. IT, anybody?
No, sir.
Great. Anybody in the audience that wants to speak that didn't sign up? Very good. Okay, item 9 is our approval of minutes. 9A is the consideration to approve the minutes of the regular joint meeting held on November 8th, 2022 of the City Council, successor agency to the redevelopment agencies and all the other entities as listed on our agenda. There are no comments or questions from council. I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Corona, second by Councilman Rabb. Please call a roll call, or call a vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Item 10 is our consent calendar. Consent calendar items are normally enacted in one motion. The mayor or city council may remove a consent calendar item for a separate action. We will allow public comment, which will be limited to 3 minutes. Council, does anybody have anything they want to pull or a quick question?
Yes, for item, if we could pull item 10H for a separate vote, but I don't need a discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Move approval of the balance.
Okay, so the balance, A through I, except for H. I have a motion by Councilman Rabb, second by Councilwoman Nava. Please call the vote.
Rabb, Rogers, Nava, Vargas. 5-0, motion approved.
Okay, item H is pulled for a separate vote. If I can get a motion first. I have a motion by Councilman Rab and a second by Councilwoman Rogers. Again, this is for item 10H. Call the vote, please.
Rab, Rogers, Nava, Vargas, yes. Corona, no.
Thank you. Item 11 is public hearings. We will have public comment of 3 minutes a person. 11A is consideration to adopt proposed resolution number next in order regarding annexation of PM 37437 and PM 37438 to Community Facilities District, CFD 2001-3, which is the North Paris Public Safety District. This is going to be introduced by our Director of Finance, Mr. Matthew Shank.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. This, as well as the other 5 public hearings, will be presented by Dulce Diaz from Wildan.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. The two projects on the agenda, PM 37437 and PM 37438, also known as Rider 2 and Rider 4 projects, are the 2 resolutions are to annex the project into the CFD 2001-3. On the meeting of October 25th, 2022, the City Council adopted a resolution of intention declaring the intention to annex certain territory into the district and setting the public hearing for tonight. Therefore, we request that the city open a public hearing for this annexation. If there are no protests, adopt a resolution calling for a special election. The property owner has waived the waiting period, so we may conduct the special election tonight. Finally, once the election is conducted, adopt a resolution declaring the result of the election, ordering the annexation, and direct the recording of the notice of special tax lien. If there are any questions, I'll be available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Council, anybody have any quick questions for clarification before I open up the public hearing? Seeing none in the queue, I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Very good. We'll close the public hearing. I'll call for a motion on the first resolution. I have a motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Councilman Rab. Please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you open the ballot?
Community Facilities District Number 2001-3, North Paris Public Safety of the City of Paris, Annexation Number 50, Special Tax and Appropriations Limit Election. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. I will now call for a motion on the second resolution.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the second resolution that's listed in our agenda but not on the screen.
Are we mixed up?
Yeah, remember we had that technical difficulty before? They could only put one resolution up at the time. That's why I'm saying I'm approving the second resolution that's listed on the agenda.
Yes. We're good? Okay. All right, so I have a motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Councilwoman Nava. Please call a vote. Good catch.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. Item 11B is consideration to adopt proposed resolution numbers next in order regarding annexation of PM 37437 and PM 37438 to the Community Facilities District, CFD 2018-02, Public Services District. This will also be introduced by Dulce Diaz.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this annexation is for the same project that I previously presented. We request that staff follow the same procedure as for the previous item. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, anybody have any questions or clarifications? I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Thank you. We'll close public hearing. I'll call for a motion on the first resolution. A motion by Councilwoman Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call a vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you open the ballot, please?
Community Facilities, District Number 2018-02, Public Services District of the City of Paris, Annexation Number 12, Special Tax and Appropriations Limit Election. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. Oh, no.
Mr. Mayor, I'll call for a motion on the second resolution that's listed on the agenda, declaring the results of the election.
Very good.
But not on our screen.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Rab. Please call a vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. 11C is consideration to adopt proposed resolution numbers next in order regarding annexation of DPR 19-00016 to the Community Facilities District, CFD 2001-3. This is the North Paris Public Safety District. And this will also be introduced by Dulce Diaz.
Honorable Mayor and council members, the two resolutions on the agenda are for the annexation of property of DPR 19-00016 into the Public Safety CFD 2001-3. On the meeting of October 25th, 2022, the City Council adopted the resolution of intention, declaring its intention to annex the territory into the district and setting the public hearing for tonight. We request that the city open the public hearing on this annexation. If no protest, adopt a resolution calling for a special election. The property owner has waived the waiting period, so we may conduct the special election tonight. Finally, once the election is conducted, adopt a resolution declaring the results of the election, ordering the annexation, and direct the recording of the notice of special tax lien. And if there are any questions, I'll be available to answer them.
Thank you. Council, any quick questions for clarification? Seeing none, we're going to open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, we have a request to speak.
No, sir.
IT?
None, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Okay, we're going to close public hearing. And I'll call for a motion on the first resolution. I have a motion by Councilwoman Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call a vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. And I'm now looking for a yes on the motion on the second resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the second resolution declaring the results of the election as listed on the agenda tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes,
I believe we have to open the ballots before we do the second motion, the second resolution.
I'm just trying to rush through this. Madam Clerk, can you open the ballot, please?
Thank you, Robert.
Community Facilities, District Number 2001-3, North Paris Public Safety of the City of Paris, Annexation Number 51, Special Tax and Appropriations Limit Election. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now looking for a motion on the second resolution.
I'll make that motion to approve the second resolution declaring the results of the election.
Thank you. Have a second?
Yeah, this one is listed on here. Yeah.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Councilman Rab. Please call roll call, or please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. 11D is consideration to adopt proposed resolution number next in order regarding annexation of DPR 19-00016 to the Community Facilities District, CFD 2018-02, Public Services District. This will be given by Dulce Diaz.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this annexation into CFD 2018-02 is for the same project I previously presented. Therefore, we request that staff follow the same procedure as for the previous item.
Thank you. Council, may I have any comments, questions real quick? Seeing none, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do you have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I'll call for a motion on the first resolution. Motion by Councilwoman Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call vote.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please open up the ballot?
Community Facilities, District Number 2018-02, Public Services District of the City of Paris, Annexation Number 13, Special Tax and Appropriations Limit Election. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. I will now call for a motion on the second resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the second resolution to approve the results of the election as listed on tonight's agenda.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Councilman Rab. Please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. 11E is consideration to adopt proposed resolution numbers next in order regarding annexation of DPR 18-00001, 18-00007, and 21-00007 to the Community Facilities District, CFD 2001-3, which is the North Paris Public Safety District. And this will be given by Dulce Diaz, in case you didn't know.
Yes. This is our last project for the night. Honorable Mayor and council members, the projects previously mentioned by the mayor are the projects for the two resolutions on the agenda. And again, for this annexation on the meeting of October 25th, the City Council adopted the resolution of intention, declaring its intention to annex the territory into the district and setting the public hearing for today. We request that the staff follow the same procedure as for the previous item.
Thank you. Council, anybody have any quick questions, clarifications? Seeing none, I'm going to call or open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do you have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this particular item? Very good. I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll call for a motion on the first resolution. I have a motion by Councilwoman Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you open the ballot?
Community Facilities District Number 2001-3, North Paris Public Safety of the City of Paris, Annexation Number 52, Special Tax and Appropriations Limit Election. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll now call for a motion on the second resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion on the second resolution declaring the results of the election as listed on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second? We have a motion by Councilman Rogers, second by Councilman Rab. Please call a vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Okay, item 11F is consideration to adopt proposed resolution numbers next in order regarding annexation of DPR 18-00001, 18-00007, and 21-00007 to the Community Facilities District, CFD 2018-02. Thought you were done.
It's the last project, two
Okay,
annexations.
and this will be introduced by Dulce Diaz.
Yes. This annexation into CFD 2018-02 is for the project I previously presented, and we request that city staff follow the same procedures as for the previous item. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for clarifications? Seeing none in the queue, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do you have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll call for the motion on the first resolution. I have a motion by Councilman Rab, second by Mayor Pro Tem Corona. Please call a vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you open up the ballot, please?
Community Facilities District Number 2018-02, Public Services District of the City of Paris, Annexation Number 14, Special Tax and Appropriations Limit Election. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll now call for a motion on the second resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the second resolution declaring the results of the special election as listed on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Councilman Rab. Please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
All righty, I think we're done with all that. Item 12 is business items, which does not require a public hearing. 12A is a presentation on vector control and Mitigation by Riverside County. This will be introduced by our Director of Public Works, Mr. Bryant Hill.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Just as a refresher, at the September 27th council meeting, council directed staff to reach out to Riverside Vector Control to see what services they can provide to our parish residents for mosquito and bee mitigation. Staff met with Riverside Vector Control last month and discussed the services they could provide to our residents. And they are here tonight to give a brief presentation of those services. I would like to introduce Rick Rudin from Vector Control, who will give the presentation. I would also like to acknowledge and thank Jeff Johnson, Director of Environmental Health, Dottie Ellis and Brent Casey, Deputy Directors of Environmental Health, and Kristen Lorge, Program Chief over Vector Control, for their assistance in this matter. They are here and will be available to answer any questions you may have. I'll turn it over to Rick.
You guys roll out the whole team. Very impressive. Thank you for being here this night.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. So I'm just going to give a quick presentation in regards to what services we provide for the County of Riverside Environmental Health Vector Control. And our goal, obviously, is to reduce the risk of disease transmissions by mosquitoes and other vectors for the residents and visitors in Riverside County. So vector sites, we have designated areas within the contracted cities. In the city of Paris, we have 40 vector sites locations as we speak, and our technicians survey and they provide services and treat as necessary. The frequency is based on the evidence and the activity of any vectors we observe, and treatment could be quarterly, monthly, or weekly, depending on the potency and the residual effect of that treatment we're going to provide there. The contracted cities are billed for the time and pesticide used, and our hourly rate is based on Riverside County Ordinance 640, and it's on a quarterly basis. So, if we're there 15 minutes, we'll charge only 1/4 of the hour, and so. And pesticides are charged at cost. Previously approved continuous surveillance locations are not going to incur any additional fees because we already have an agreement with the city to provide those services on a continuous basis. So we also receive complaints, and the way we deal with complaint response for cities is we need to obtain city approval. So what will happen is we will tell the complainants to reach out to the city to see if we can provide those services, and then the city will submit to us authorization to investigate and agree with our fees and our services that we provide. Once we receive the approval from the city, we create a tracking number for the complaint, and then our specialists will go out there and come up with a treatment plan. They want to assess, obviously, first to see what they're going to need, depending on what activities they're observing there. And we thoroughly track their time and the treatment they're going to use as well in order to provide that service. The billing itself is done so on a quarterly basis with each city that we have an agreement with, and that's for the time spent and the pesticides that are needed. The exception would be if we are informed by public health that there's a probable human case. We will go out there and we will investigate, and that's not an additional fee that the city incurs.
What type of case?
If it's like, let's say if it's a case of a transmittable disease that was observed by someone that was reported at a hospital, right? They're being treated, and public health informs us that there's an official confirmation of someone that's sick that lives within a vicinity of a city area. We will go out there and do surveillance and inform the public of what to do when it comes to being able to control vector activities or mosquito activities, but we will also surveillance the areas and see activity, or if we can find any activity there, and then come up with a solution or a treatment plan. Okay. So how it's done, certified vector control technicians, we do surveillance, and this is what I tend to help out with as well. We trap live mosquitoes, and we'll use dry ice, basically, which kind of creates like a carbon dioxide or like us breathing out, when we're out walking about, and that attracts those mosquitoes in order to trap them into those nets. And then we count them, and then we check to see what kind of species they are, and that's what I tend to do. And then we send that to testing laboratories, and we're trying to confirm if there is a disease, right? And if there's a disease, then we're going to take additional actions in order to provide additional treatments. And the data is also available there at that website, westnilevirusca.gov. Site activities, depending if it's a private property, request versus warrant. We're talking about, and I'll go further later on as well, like, let's say if we receive a green pool complaint. If there's a resident that hasn't been really taking care of their pool, and it has a natural minerals in the environment for breeding, we are going to have to reach out to the property owners to inform them that we need to check out the property. And if it gets to the point where, we're not getting any assistance from them, then we will seek further corrective actions to obtain a warrant in order to go in there and treat those properties correctly.
Let me ask you real quick.
Yes.
Is that all handled through you, or or at that point, code enforcement?
We work with code enforcement, so
Okay.
yes, right. So it would be a scenario where we would initially try to reach out to the owners or the tenants, and if we're not having any luck, then we'll reach out to other regulatory agencies to assist us, yes. Mhm. And then we also, we deal with public right-of-ways, so like, if we're talking about, any issues with bees in a public area, then we are gonna seek out the approval from the city in order for us to treat that area there. Control-wise, we want source reduction, obviously. We want to limit the amount of mosquitoes that are available there. They're going to be vectors and have these diseases. Education through outreach as well. I was just participating at a community fair. So we had our booth and we gave out pamphlets. I answered a lot of questions because, as we all know, mosquito activity has been kind of high recently. And it's throughout the county. So, and it's other areas from what I read as well. So it's just informing the public of what they could do in order to control any type of mosquito activities within their own community is very helpful. Non-pesticides, mosquito larvae eating fish, we provide those as well. We have a tank back at the office, and if someone wants any mosquitoes and they have a pond of some sort, we'll provide it. We'll ask them questions to make sure that it's going to be a good environment for the fish. But yes, that's to reduce the amount of mosquito larvae that might be active in those ponds that some people really don't keep an eye on a daily basis, right? We just went out to go check out a site in a city, and we went to the backyard of a lady. She was really wonderful, and she, let us in to go check it out. She had like a little fountain. It was kind of stagnant, and sure enough, we saw larvae in there. So we got rid of the water, but, that's what we're talking about, that educational outreach as well. It really informs the public of what they could do on their end in order to control those type of activities. And then pesticide application. Once again, it depends on the type of activity we observe, what type of treatment we're going to provide. If it's a adulticide for adult mosquitoes or larvicide for the larva, because mosquitoes go through stages, right, before they become a full-grown mosquito and they're flying around everywhere trying to get that blood meal. So it just depends on what we're going to do there in order to try to correct those issues. I hope I didn't go too quick. I know I tend to do that sometimes, but there's our contact information, and we have our website. It has lots of good information, once again, in regards to outreach and informing the public. We have videos. We have information bulletins. People call us all the time in our office as well, and our office assistants, she's fantastic. She's always answering all those questions in regards that the public might have, and people call me as well, and I'll try to answer all those questions as best as I can. And we have our phone number that it's up there as well, and there's our staff.
Very good. Did you bring us any samples?
I hope not.
No. I have some jars back at the office.
Hang tight there. I'm going to check with my council if they have any questions. Anybody have any? Okay, Councilwoman Nava.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for the presentation. It is definitely due here in our community. Is there anything you advise or recommend the city to help mitigate some of this? I know this year it seems like it's been the worst here in our city. What can we continue doing? I know you mentioned outreach and whatnot, but is there anything specific?
Just outreach, and then also just, I think the community needs to help. We need to help ourselves in the community, right? Just like open lines of communication. If we go to these fairs and we give out our information, or if, let's say, cities have a link to go back to our website, so then they can look at that information to know what to do in those situations to try to curb, the activity of these mosquitoes. I think that's very helpful. One of the mosquitoes that is very active right now is the oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank here. Aedes aegypti. The Aedes aegypti mosquito it doesn't need that much water, just needs maybe a cap full of water to kind of proliferate and grow. It likes to stay in its own little area, and it's tenacious, so it just likes to continue, biting to get that blood meal and then produce again. But the interesting thing about the Aedes aegypti mosquito is that it doesn't need much water. So even if people tend to over irrigate their water, and it's kind of spongy like, right, when you're walking around that lawn, that's just the perfect environment for them, and all they need is just a little bit. And their eggs too, they can go on like this dry hibernation mode where it could be dry for years or weeks, and they just need a little bit of water for it to come back to life.
Does that include, sorry to interrupt, does that include your pots indoors as well? Is that?
That's a good point. So indoors, I would say like the only time I've heard that there's concerns is if those mosquitoes somehow go indoors, right? You want to get rid of them as best you can.
Right.
But any type of pots you might have with little saucers, you want to get rid of that excess water. They don't need much. Like I said, like I'm not exaggerating. Just like, the cap of a bottle, bottled water is all they need to, to proliferate.
That's alarming. And those are the ankle biters, right?
Those are
So
the
they
no-see-ums,
tend to
ankle
fly
biters,
low.
exactly, yeah. And they're really pretty, by the way. They're, because I look at them under the microscope,
I think that's based on perspective.
right. But
I know
mean,
we're
like,
cringing up here.
But it's an interesting creature, right? But once again, they're tenacious, and the one way to control them is, and to curb their growth is just by following simple steps. And if people get into the habit of doing that, and I have actually, I've educated myself being in this program. I started originally in foods, but when I'm in my backyard, I'm checking places. I want to make sure I have no standing water, and I'm doing my part, because when I'm out there, I'm trying to enjoy the evening and they're biting me like crazy. It's just an inconvenience.
Yeah, and so then they don't tend to congregate indoors, but if they are, that means that you're possibly leaving doors open or windows
Exactly.
open. Okay.
Exactly. So a good way is just to deter them from coming in is just make sure you have your screening, your mesh is nice and enclosed, right? And also, tend to close those doors. And the thing about these type of mosquitoes is they tend to be active during the day. They just need a little bit of shade, and they're ready to go. So it's just a matter of being aware. Eucalyptus oil spray is a really good deterrent, and it's natural, right? It smells like eucalyptus, but it's one of those things that you could spray on, enjoy your afternoon outside, and all you need to do is just get like a little wet towel and just wipe yourself down afterwards. You're not going to have that eucalyptus smell indoors if you don't want it, right? But it's very effective as well. And we tell people to wear long sleeve shirts and pants as well outside. And I know that's an inconvenience, especially during the summer. So I always recommend that eucalyptus oil spray as a deterrent. It's very effective, and it's very inexpensive. And like I said, it's very easy to take off afterwards as well.
Thank you. Very informative. Appreciate that.
Councilman Rab?
Yes, more of a comment, but just want to thank you for coming and giving this presentation, and I appreciate you guys working with us and working with our city staff, particularly 6 or 7 years ago where we had a major mosquito infestation on the south end of town by Santa Central Riverbed, and working with the neighbors in the Monument Ranch, Monument Park community to eradicate that issue. So just want to thank you for working with our staff, Public Works, and Code Enforcement to help. And since then, I haven't really heard that many complaints in that area. Maybe Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem Corona could elaborate, but thank you once again for your presentation.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I am very proud of our staff. They do a great job. They're very knowledgeable, and they take their job very seriously, and they're also concerned about the environment. That's what I do appreciate, because a lot of these products that we use are really strictly regulated by EPA. And also, there's times and there's a certain quantity you're supposed to set in place so you don't damage other types of ecosystems as well. So we do take that very seriously, and we take the public safety very seriously as well. So that's great to hear. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do vividly remember 2015, 2016 when, like it was all the neighbors were flooding this whole area trying to solve the whole mosquito issue. But I think since then it's been a lot better. Now, how does this year compare to, say, in that year? Is it?
I believe that every year there's a consistency, but obviously, so the way that it becomes problematic would be like there's development, right? And we have tract homes and we have irrigation runoff into basins, and that's what we tend to go treat primarily. But once again, though, the types of mosquitoes that we're used to, we treat on a consistent basis, such as Culex tarsalis, right, which is the one that carries the West Nile virus, so we're concerned about that one. But because the Aedes aegypti coming along, it it works differently, right? It doesn't follow the same rules as Culex tarsalis does. So I believe that every year, we have to work together as a community to try to curb their activity, because if it's one of them that we're controlling, the other one is going to want to become more active or try to find ways to get that meal, right? And kind of become a pest and annoyance as well. So it's just a matter of informing ourselves, the community informing themselves and being proactive of doing these little things that they could do to control the circumstance. Another example would be like the land, the backyard or irrigation drain lines that we have in our backyards and our front yards, right? Those tend to clog up and they'll have water, an accumulation of water at the top. If we put our flashlight in there, more often than not, we see larva activity there. So one of the things you want to do is you want to flush that out. You want to clean that out, right? You want to make sure they're nice and clear, so when there's excess water, it is going to drain to the front, to the sidewalk and the roadways, as opposed to just creating these little puddles of water where, once again, they don't need that much water. They're gonna grow like crazy. So you want to control that.
Okay, so like sticking like a couple drops of bleach, would that do anything, or is that myth?
It does. That's a myth. So I've actually gone to bases where I've seen white larvae. It looks like they almost glow in the dark. It's bleach water, right? So there's a lot of heavy amount of bleach in that water, and all it does is it just tickles them, I think. It doesn't do much. What they're looking for is rich mineral, stagnant water. So even like, let's say water fountains are good because they're constantly moving, right? You don't want standstill water. Okay. That surface tension has to be broken, because that's all they need in order to be able to, the larvae breathe in a certain way, and they just need that surface tension to be just right for them to be comfortable. Once there's movement of water, they're uncomfortable with that type of environment.
Okay.
So yeah, just a little bit of water will do. So we just got to keep an eye on that.
So about a month ago, I mean, I hate to get specific, but there was this one little small one that you could hardly see. Is that the
It might be it. It's black and white.
I don't
It's
even
like
know.
black
It was
little stripes,
tiny.
yeah.
I couldn't even see. You'd only see with the flashlight or something.
One time it was I went to throw out the trash, and it just landed near me, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, he's just looking at me like, "You want to have a conversation?" and bite me as well. But I see them more often than not now. So it's just a matter of just being vigilant. And if you want to enjoy yourself out in the park or in the afternoon, just take those precautionary measures to take care of yourself and your family.
Okay, and then just two more questions. Like how about down south? Are we seeing issues in San Jacinto River? Is that pretty
It's
maintained?
yeah.
Okay.
Just kind of routine, same as it was before. Like, obviously, we have our seasons. So, when it's hot, right? And especially, when it's hot and not too hot, though. They don't like, believe it or not, they don't like triple-digit heat. It's got to be just the right amount of heat. In the 90s, they're in heaven at that point.
But like that summer rain that we had, that was...
Yeah, and then we get our peaks where there's activity because of rain too. Obviously, there's going to be more water there available for them as well. But then if they tend to dissipate after time as well when it gets cold, right?
Right.
But during the summer, or let's say late spring, summer, right, when it gets a little warm, that's when you want to take care of yourself and be more active of taking all those precautionary measures. Yeah. And there will be a curve in the activity at that point.
Okay, and then you spoke about diseases. Have you observed any diseases here in the city of Paris?
No. So we did get a confirmation. By the way, the way that works too is we check for viruses in the mosquito itself, and then we send it to a lab, right? Or the lab will confirm that. And then we take the precautionary measures to provide additional treatment at those locations where we caught those mosquitoes.
Okay.
Right. So it's proof positive. I believe that it's a very effective tool in order to control the probability of let's say, us getting infected with those type of viruses.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you so much.
So as a pool owner, I'm okay as long as it's properly chlorinated?
So, and actually, so it's funny, you mentioned that, so.
I'm getting bit every night.
Properly, the trick would be proper circulation, right? Circulation of that water, so it's always moving around. Any type of solids or total dissolved solids, which is like what tends to clump up in the water, your filter is going to take care of that, right? So you want to make sure that you're recirculating your water more often than not. So on a daily basis, let's say a couple
Sure, if
hours.
you're going to help me with the bill, I mean, of course.
Well, right. But as long as
The
it's,
pool pumps don't run 24/7.
It doesn't have to be-
They run 8 to 10 hours a day.
there you go. Yeah, so as long
Yeah, but
as
that's
it,
at night where I'm trying to conserve energy. So when I'm out in the daytime, I'm not moving the waters.
oh, okay. But as long as you're doing it, at least, let's say within a 24-hour time period, you're doing it, within so many hours within that 24-hour time period. I think the most important aspect would be removing some of those particles in the pool by using your filter, right? So that's gonna help keep that water nice and
Referring to
clean.
my grandkids?
It's not gonna allow those minerals to be in there, because that's what they want. They want mineral-rich water, right?
Got it,
In order
got it.
to feed on it.
Well, I think like you said, though, it is moving, and since it is moving, I mean, generally speaking, you're supposed to run your pump at least 8 hours a day.
Right.
If you're a salt-based system, it's 7 days a week constantly, but maybe they're not inviting there because there is movement,
There's
so-
movement there, the minerals are getting removed, but remember though, also by you using the chlorine or the bleach, you're not allowing like little microorganisms to grow in there too, right?
Well, thanks for letting me enjoy my pool in the future from here on. Staff, do we have a link or anything on the website referring to tips and stuff that he just explained to us for our community members? So can you work with them to get something going on there? Great. All right, thank you, sir.
One more comment, Mayor,
Oh,
sorry, one more comment. Since we are growing as a city, we've approved new home development and whatnot, and you mentioned that also helps or increases the chances of mosquito. Would you say that we need more city control here to add more sites or any recommendations
You know,
as our
it's-
city
it's-
grows?
It's, the way I see it is, you're gonna have communities that they like a nice green lawn, right? So it depends, it's a preference of the community and what they want. I know that there's more, we're pushing for more drought, or, the state is pushing for more drought-friendly yards and whatnot, and I'm an advocate of that. But I also understand like people liking grass and it looks really pretty. I just think it's a matter of not over watering their yard, right? So in other words, as long as they're consciously aware of just having the right amount of irrigation without it being excess is going to be fundamental. I think that's very important. And I understand, like I said, we can't tell communities what they can and cannot do. So we're always going to have that irrigation runoff, right? And it's going to collect somewhere. We're going to probably have to provide services and treatment to it because that's just the way it is, right? And not only that, there's other it's like its own little ecosystem. There's other insects that live and proliferate in those areas as well. So we understand that too. So it just depends on the community what they want. But I think educating the public as well, and we want to conserve water as well, just by mentioning to them, hey, just watering your lawn is important, but just let's not overdo it because it could contribute to other issues.
Okay, thank you. I just asked the question in order to recommend to staff whether staff and council, if we need an increase in this budget. So I'll leave that pending for now. Thank you.
We're being charged as they're being called on their service, right? We're not restricted to a certain area.
Right.
So they will, whatever it comes up, we call them, they come out.
But there's a number of certain sites that you continuously check every quarter, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's dependent on the observed activity, right? So in other words, because the environment is there where, let's say there's.
She's referring to, you have 40 sites in the city right now.
Yes.
That
Right.
can grow to 50 tomorrow, and you're going to watch it. There's no increase in services unless you're providing some treatment.
Right. But remember though, we want to, I think the focal point would be to decrease it because.
No, I
people-
get that.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
referring to funding issues.
I got you, yes.
This is not a problem with funding issues. If
Right.
it grows to 60, which God forbid it does,
Right.
we're still covered. You're going to work those
Oh,
areas.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
There is no funding limit for this project.
Right.
Got it. But yeah, we want to reduce 40 down to 20 at least. All right, thank you and the team for all coming out. I'm sorry we kept you so long, but actually Paris does pretty well, so we got you out here pretty early. You can go home, watch the Dodger game now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, did we have any requests to speak from the public?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to 12B, consideration for options for potential ballot revenue measures to mitigate damage let me start again. This is consideration of options for potential ballot revenue measures to mitigate damage to and improve roads and infrastructure. This will be introduced by our Deputy City Manager, Mr. Ernie Reyna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. So previously on September 13th, the council directed staff to look into ways to mitigate the cost of damages and to the infrastructure done by some of the warehouses in the industry. So staff did do that research and trying to figure out what that cost would be in terms of raising money for the road repairs. So working with our city engineering department, we did devise a number that we've been working on. And so through that research, what we've been able to find is ways that we can mitigate that cost. We've been looking at a few things. We looked at some of the other cities were doing on the local ballots that just were approved back in November. So we're going to bring that into consideration right now. So we're going to talk about that, how we got to where we're at. We're going to talk about the processes that we use and the research and the methodology that we got to where we're going to get right now. So we're going to view with you some numbers of where we're at and the process, and then we're going to open it up for questions and see where we goes from there. So first, I'd like to introduce James Edison. He's from Wilden Financial, so we've engaged him to help us with this. He's going to walk through this revenue measures and where we're going to go from there. So he's going to take it away from here. So James, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. I'll walk you briefly through our analysis and results, and then I think Mr. Reyna will come back with some context and next steps. So just a brief overview of the process. First is, of course, to identify the quantity of the costs that need to be funded. In this case, it's the maintenance and repair of the collectors and main roads, the ones that are affected by the truck traffic especially. Secondly, we considered two revenue alternatives, one a parcel tax, one a business license tax. The parcel tax would be on all industrial parcels within the city by square footage. The business license tax would be for warehouse industrial as identified in your business license system, which is a slightly different number. As you'll see, it's not, because obviously there are lots of industrial spaces that don't meet those criteria. And then finally, with those two numbers, we calculated the rate that would be necessary as a tax rate necessary to fund the identified expenses. So here's just a summary of the results. You can see the parcel tax, which is again by land, would be about 2.5 cents per square foot of land. And then the business license tax would be about a little more than 15 cents per square foot of building, which is not quite the same, obviously. Any given structure is going to have more land under than the building, so it's slightly different implications. But in addition, so there's the estimated annual revenue. That's our revenue target, which I'll talk about in a minute. And in the last column there, future annual revenue we added because, in fact, in the case of projects, you have a lot of completed industrial or warehouse projects, but actually there are also some that are currently entitled or in process. And so we included those so you understand what the implications are, because those are all pretty likely to happen and happen fairly soon, in a year or so, roughly. So that you know what the revenue is going forward in addition to what you receive based on what's currently on the ground. So first, working with staff, these are the road maintenance costs, and this is actually, you can see this is a life cycle cost. So over the 30 years, you can see it's a little lumpy. There's slurry seal, and then you have to sort of do a bigger project every 12 years. Of course, you don't do the business license tax or the parcel tax that way. It's an annual number. So what we did is calculated, you can see down there at the bottom, the sort of annual average of that total, so that you're getting by the time you get to the end of your life cycle, you've collected all the money you need to maintain the roads. And you can see that total there is $4 million, which is the same number it was in the earlier table. So then in terms of square footage, you can see there the completed projects are about 26 million, 36, almost 37 million of completed entitled projects. Those are building square feet. And then for zoned industrial parcels, and I apologize there, that column's not labeled properly. It should say parcel square footage. There aren't 162 million acres of industrial land in the city. 162 million square feet, which of course is how it would be taxed by square foot, but we can all convert square feet to acres. Just to understand the sort of scale, and you can see there's a significant difference between those numbers, because in the case of the business license tax, that would be just on warehouse and industrial space versus the industrial category of parcels, which is everything basically in the city. So then from there we did the calculation. You can see there on the right that number I shared with you earlier, that 15.5 cents per building square foot and 2.5 cents per lot square foot. The target revenue, which is the maintenance cost we identified earlier, and then the square footage, which is used, it's essentially a quotient, right? It's divide the revenue by the square footage to get how much you need per square foot per year to meet the costs over the life cycle of the roads. And then with that, Mr. Reyna will talk about.
Thank you, James. So as James mentioned, our target goal revenue for the year is $4 million based on what we saw in the previous slides of what we need to raise. And so in conversations and research and looking at what we could possibly do, we did narrow it down to two particular revenue measures, being the business license tax or the parcel tax. And so what we also did is took a survey of what local cities in the area have done over the past 10 years or so. And so there's a nice little website called Ballotpedia that kind of tracks all that for you. So we went through, looked at that. And what you see here is recently, a couple weeks ago, matter of fact, City of Redlands just had their business license tax approved. That was approved with about 53.5% of the voters voting yes from that. And so what theirs did was about a 6 cents tax increase. It went from about 4.5 cents up to about 10.5 per square foot. So that was a successful measure. Wanted to point that one out, but that was in the City of Redlands. A couple of parcel taxes that have been approved recently. This past one in November, we did see the City of Desert Hot Springs have a approved parcel tax. Theirs was approved with about 75%. You can see the various factors in there with the $103 a square foot and the various other ones that are in there as well. But going back a little bit further, outside in the county of San Bernardino, in July of 2017, they did have one approved there as well. So you don't see a lot in the past 10 years, just this type of stuff, there's not a lot on there. And so when we looked at other cities as well, there were some failures as well that just didn't get approved. And so looking at a few, City of Indian Wells, this was about 10 years ago, theirs did not pass, as well as the City of Canyon Lake in June of 2011, that one did not pass then either. Just to give you kind of a feel of what was out there in terms of what was passed and what was not. We did do that survey, so we looked at those cities and found out what was out there and what was approved or not.
Quick question,
Yes,
Ernie.
yes.
With the ones that failed for this one,
Yeah.
those parcel tax would have been for property owners, not necessarily for industrial.
Yeah, correct. There's
Okay.
different various components of each one of those. So just pointing out the fact that it was a parcel tax, it
Gotcha.
could have been different setup. So yeah,
Okay.
that could be true.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so where we're at with next steps. So if either revenue measure is accepted by this council and we want to move forward, there's a couple options that we can look at next. And first is timing. So because this will be a special election, we can look at two dates. We can look at March or we can look at November. So I first want to focus in on March. And this is going to be an extremely tight timeline simply because of when everything needs to get over to the Register of Voters, and that would be December 9th. And so in order for that date to happen, there needs to be a special meeting of the council on either December 7th or 8th with an approval going forward. And in that particular moment, as noted in the black right there, bold, it has to include an ordinance, tax rate, the duration of tax. There's a lot of little specific items that have to get done, as well as designating the drafter of arguments. So a lot of little components have to happen within that short period of time. And the caveat to this one is that if we go forward in March and it doesn't approve, doesn't make it, there's a cool-off period of 1 year. So if we do not have this approved in March, we can't go forward in November. We'd have to wait at least a year. So that's important to note that if we were considering March, then that comes into play as well. So that would be for the March timeframe. And then moving forward for November, we do have a little bit more time with this one with the Register of Voters, Office of Registrar. We wouldn't have till August 11th to get this to them. And no special meeting until about July 25th. So that's when the council would have to move to go forward with that. So we have a little bit more time, a little bit more outreach can happen. And so that's kind of where we're at with all that one. I think it's important to note that, that gives us a little more time with outreach because with the city of Pomona, with theirs failed, theirs went in right away and they didn't have a lot of time for outreach. They just went in and kind of did it, put on the ballot, and then that was that. So it moved rather quickly, but that's important to notice on that one as well. But it's important to also note that with either option, the cost is going to be about the same. It'll be about $105,000 to put the item on the ballot, and then another $45,000, $50,000 just for public outreach. So we're talking about $150,000 either way. I'm going to pause right here and see if there's any questions with respect to it. If I missed anything, staff, if I missed anything on that one. Okay.
Yeah, quick question. You're saying that you have to wait a cool-off day?
Yeah.
A cool-off period of 1 year to reintroduce it again. For election day on 2023, if it's off by like a couple days, like say if it's November 7th and the other one's gonna be November 5th, well, that's not a full year, but did it just count the cycles?
Yeah.
Like is that considered a year?
I'll defer it over to our city attorney.
So the statute says it's a 12-month period. So I would prefer to be conservative and be safe about it and exceed the 12-month if possible. So, for example, if we have a measure on for March 2023, The earliest we could do it is, I think it's March 2024, I believe. So that'll be 13 months after that date. So you're beyond the 12-month period. Or you wait till November 2024 as well. So as long as you're meeting or exceeding the 12-month period. But to be conservative, I would suggest exceeding the 12-month period only because the elections code is not 100% clear on that and not often litigated to give us an answer. Clear answer, rather.
So for like, I was kind of concerned it was going to be the case, but it will be. In 2023, election day is November 7th, and then 2024 is November 5th. So, I mean, that's not 365 days, but it's essentially a year.
We would count the months, so it's a 12-month period. So
that would be a
theoretically,
year?
I think that would be the 13th. We'll verify with the county to make sure they're okay with it, but I think that would be the 13th month after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so my concern would be if it failed, we'd have to wait till the following
Right.
to March of a year, essentially a
Well,
year.
the dates are kind of weird, but
Yeah.
essentially, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So moving forward, recommendation on what we're looking for. So with respect to this, we're looking for the receive and file and provide direction on potential ballot revenue measures and to mitigate damage and improve roads and infrastructure with 3 points we kind of want to bring forward. First, with respect to the revenue measure, which the council would prefer, if any, the business license or the parcel. Number 2, when to go to ballot. Is the preference for March of 2023 or November 2023? And then finally, any specific language or items that you'd like to see included in the ballot. So staff's looking for direction on those 3 items there. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. We also have James Edison here from Wilden, as well as staff to help with any questions the council may have.
Thank you. I'm going to start off with just saying there's no need to rush this. I'm not worried about timelines. If we go forward with this and it gets passed, it gets passed. My main concern that I want the council to know is that this has to be very well outreach. I want our people to understand we're not taxing them, because anytime you say a tax increase, they think they're going to get, they need to really understand that this is specifically for the warehouses, specifically to do our roads and whatever we decide that's going to be. And I would rather take the time to do that and be ready for November of next year. But with that, I'm going to stop and allow council to make their comments. So,
Some questions.
I know you guys probably want to see the screen, so let me just. Who wants to start?
I have questions.
Yes, Councilman Rab.
Yes, just 2 questions. Regarding the March of 2023 election, there's any way we can have the election in June of 2023, or is March coupled with the 2024? Because I know 2024, the primary will be in March, but the primary for all of your elections is typically in June. Is it either March or November of 23?
That's a good question. I don't know. Robert, can you answer that, or?
I'm pulling up the information right now. Give me 1 second.
And that would go to what the mayor discussed earlier. I think trying to rush it to March would be too much of a rush, but if there was a June option, I think that would give us just enough time. And then while Robert's pulling it up, you said designate someone to write a rebuttal. So is that sort of like a ballot statement? And could we designate either the city attorney or staff to do that? And if we were to move forward in March, do you think we would have enough, we'd have to submit that by December 9th, correct?
I believe that's the case, and yeah, and Robert can speak more to that, or, yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
Way too soon.
I don't believe there would be a June availability in 2023. With respect to, well, of course, we'll double check with the county to be sure. And with respect to your second question, could you repeat that?
Yes, so he had mentioned designating a person, individual write the ballot statement. So I remember when we did the water, I believe the city attorney did it last time.
Right.
If we were to move forward with the March election, would we need to submit, or whoever we designated, would they need to submit their argument to the ROV by December 9th?
No, I do not believe so. There would be a later date that would be set by the city clerk's office within the applicable county requirements.
All right, council, just let's go back in order. I shouldn't have jumped ahead like that. Let's start with one. Let's give direction first on which, do we want to go with the business license or partial license? And then we can get back to the time.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Huh?
Mr. Mayor, if I may? Before we get into the business license versus parcel tax discussion, I do want to clarify one thing about the voter threshold requirement. The distinction between the two, what the voter threshold is whether it's a special or general tax. So parcel taxes have to be special taxes, so that requires a 2/3 requirement.
For the partial.
Correct. Business license taxes, on the other hand, can be special or general taxes. If you're a general tax, it's only a 50% plus one vote requirement. However, and the reason why this is complicated is because the state constitution is complicated on this issue, is that if you want to submit a general tax to the voters, it has to occur at a general election or a regular election, basically where council members are up for election, unless the council declares essentially a fiscal emergency by
But
unanimous
by
vote.
going that route, that means it's just going into general fund.
Correct.
This should be a specific tax to be used specifically for our roads and repairs, because we're not attacking, but we're charging the warehouses for this tax. They're the ones damaging this. I don't want to see this money going to general. I want this to be a specific tax increase to fix our roads when they get damaged by these trucks.
Correct. So that scenario would be either a special business license tax or a special parcel tax, which both would require a 2/3 voter approval requirement.
2/3.
2/3.
Yeah, it's going to require more votes, I got that, but the public's going to know that this is specifically to fix roads and roads only, or whatever infrastructure we choose to throw in there. That's what's important about this tax rate. All right.
One question. Robert, if we did it in November of '23, which seems like the most logical time to go ahead to proceed with it, and if it failed with the 2/3, if we brought it back November of '24, then we wouldn't have to pay the extra filing fees, would we? Because we'd be having a regular election then. We'd save that money, wouldn't we?
Theoretically, yes, because we'd be consolidating with other election items from other cities when you're consolidating with the county. My understanding is that the more elections going on that the county's running, the cost will generally be lower. Don't quote me on that, but that's my understanding.
So we wouldn't pay the extra $105,000.
Possibly.
But we would still need a 2/3 vote.
Correct.
So for clarification, City Attorney, the 2/3 is not the council. Like, we don't have to vote 2/3 to put on the ballot? Or is there a threshold for the council to vote to put on the ballot?
If it's a special tax, it's just a majority.
It just is a simple majority?
Right. But it's still 2/3 voter approval, so, something to think about.
Okay, and if it's during a general, you just need simple majority?
If you do a general tax,
General
which is a
tax.
different type of tax, oddly, that requires 2/3 of the council, which essentially means 4/5. But it only requires a 50% plus one for voter approval.
Okay, and what's the other tax?
The special tax, which is just the majority of the council, but 2/3 of the voters.
Oh, so one's one way, okay.
Yeah, it's an unusual discrepancy, but
That is
that's what it is.
strange. Okay, and then for clarification, are we still looking to see if we vote to put it on November's ballot and it fails, we have to wait a year?
Correct.
But a year from that date was going to be after the next voting cycle, so after the next voting election of 2024.
Right, so you're saying it's after November.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
was
then-
after that date. But you're saying 12 months, just November to
It
November.
says 12 months, but, we'll
Okay.
verify, double check everything just to make sure we're in a good position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that would be
2 days.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, go back to the options, Ernie. So let's go back to number one. Let's knock these off one at a time. Do we want to go business license or partial?
They have to be special.
Well, only one of them has to be special. It's the business, which one is which?
Which one is the special and which one is the general?
So parcel taxes all have to be special.
Partial tax.
Right, but business license taxes can be either. But for our purposes, based upon what I'm hearing from the council, in terms of we want this to be specific, then we would be considering a special business license tax, which requires the 2/3 voter approval. Right? So what we're considering, I think what we're getting at right now is that we're considering two special taxes. One is a business license tax and one is a parcel tax.
And the parcel tax does not need a 2/3 vote.
It does.
It does.
They both need 2/3.
Anytime a tax is categorized as a special tax.
Yeah.
It needs a 2/3 voter approval.
So they both need okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And the special tax, I mean, we're also referring to as it's restricted funds.
Correct. You
not
identify
going to
the
general
usage
That's
in the
what I think
ordinance.
is the
Correct.
most
Right.
dominant and prominent thing we need to do with this is it is a special tax. This council many years ago tried to pass a public safety tax, and it said it may be used for police and fire. Well, then that's not a special tax. So I want this to be done right this time and charge those who are responsible for our roads, damages to our roads and infrastructure, and that is the industrial logistical businesses.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How are the tax rates determined?
How are
So
they-
the 2 cents versus the 15
Sure.
cents?
I'm going to bring James up. He can define all that for you. He's got the methodology of how we got all that, but it's based on the amount of repairs that we identified, how much where there were, and he's got a methodology how he backed into that. So I'll bring James up.
Good evening. So I'll just go back to this earlier slide, just to show the math. It's basically the math is right here. You can see the target revenue, those are those maintenance costs we identified, the sort of cycle, which is not the same amount every year, but over 30 years, so we averaged it just for what you need to collect, $4 million per year. And so in the case of the business license tax, you just take that $4 million, divide it by the 25.9 million square feet, and that's what gets you that 1.5 cents. The 25.9 million, that's an estimate from staff of how many of the structures that are currently in the city that are the category of warehouse and industrial. That's the total. When it comes to actually implementing a tax, that'll all get refined and nailed down exactly, but this is our current estimate. Then the same goes for the parcel tax. It's the same target revenue, that $4 million. It's divided by a larger number because it's actually not just square footage of building, it's square footage of land, which is of course more than the building, but also it's more parcels because it's all the industrial land. Because when you're looking at a parcel tax, there isn't any way to distinguish between what is and isn't an industrial building when you're defining the parcel tax. In addition, the thing you want to consider is for a parcel tax, you sort of have one shot at it essentially, right? You define who pays the tax in terms of what pays the tax, the land. And you really can't modify it, right? You're defining the scope of the tax. In the case of the business license tax, that's tied to a definition that's in your business license system. So to the extent a new warehouse comes along or a building gets converted to warehouse use where it's something else before, you've got some more flexibility there. That is sort of a distinction to consider, I suppose. But in terms of the math, there's just fewer, you're dividing by a fewer square feet, so you end up with a larger tax. And it's not only fewer square feet there, but it's also actually fewer buildings, fewer parcels, because as I said, the business license tax is limited to the ones we defined, the warehouse industrial category. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I know another question was asked was the duration of tax. How would that work since we're going to continuously need these road improvements?
Right. I think that's subject to your discretion. I don't know. There may be some legal restrictions that the city attorney can talk about.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Duration of tax.
Well, so the law requires the duration of the tax to be described in the ordinance, and then tax measure rather. It doesn't have, there's no limit. There could be forever. It could be a 10-year period. It could be a 15-year period. In my experience, most cities do not put a duration limit unless there's a particular reason why the city would want to do that. But generally speaking, my experience is that they don't typically provide a duration.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Rogers.
Of the 2/3 vote required, that's not of the registered voters. That would be only of the voters that showed up to the poll that day, correct?
Correct. It'd be 2/3 of the voters then voting.
That voted.
Right. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, for follow-up to Councilwoman Nava's question, for the duration, I know a recent city, they recently went from 4 cents to 10 cents. Is there any way to put a tax in there where it just kind of increases according to PMI, or would a council have to come back 10 years later and do this again? If provided it does pass?
You want like a built-in escalator.
Pretty much.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
I think that's possible as long as everything is clearly spelled out in the ordinance and in the ballot question. I don't see many taxes with a built-in escalator. They do like a maximum tax, like our cannabis tax is a maximum tax. So it allows us to initially lower it if we wanted to and then increase it over time. But I believe you can do an escalator if that's the direction.
And typically, if I may, Mayor, typically you'll see that in a diff fee, the escalator, we have that built into our industrial fees for park fees and public art, I believe. But again, this is all direction that we will take back and then bring back to you some of these answers, like the duration of the tax, the escalator possibility, that we can bring back at a separate workshop before drafting up the ballot measure.
Right, we're just learning right now. Not that we're not going to finalize anything. Any other questions? Councilman Rab?
There's certain homes that may have been rezoned industrial where the people still live in the homes, and especially on the north end of town. Would the parcel tax affect those residents? And because I know there's certain homes on the north end that, not a lot of homes, but there are some people that live in industrial zoned areas.
Right, I mean, that'll be essentially a function of the database we use. I mean, we actually did the work for Pomona, and there actually we looked at the zoning of the parcel, but also the land use designation of the parcel, which was in the database, and sort of combined them to try to suss out those kinds of situations, to figure out the right definition that targets the folks who should be paying and exempting the ones who aren't. That being said, it's a big city. There's a lot of parcels. It's hard to know, to be able to say absolutely that everyone's going to be exempted or should be if they're in those sort of strange situations. That's something we'd have to bring back and actually dig into the database and really see what those cases are and sort that out.
Okay. I just think there are certain parcels. I know there's one near my house on the corner of Ellis and Redlands. There's a house there, and I think it's occupied, but I know that land has been rezoned industrial. So I just want to make sure that these people, a lot of times who are under the median income, aren't screwed over by this tax increase. So if we just keep those people on our conscience moving forward.
Makes sense.
Well, you would eventually have like a database of all the taxes, people that are paying the taxes, right? So, and I would assume it's a line item, so it'll pop up with the company's name. So if it's a residential home, it's not going to say Mr. Vargas Incorporated. It's going to say, Michael and Julie Vargas. So, because by no means are we going to attack any of our residents. I don't care where they are. This is strictly industrial logistical facilities.
Right, that's understood.
If I may, Mayor, just to add to that, which is why the difference between the parcel tax and the business license tax are two separate mechanisms. So the parcel tax assesses every parcel zone industrial. The business license tax is designed for the use. So we have the ability to control who gets licensed, just like the cannabis tax, because it's based on our business license database. And we're able to identify which are the industrial warehouse users for the business license tax.
Got it. Mayor Pro Tem, you had a question?
With the business license tax,
You're not
there were
on.
smaller people that we wanted to exempt, like the little small mom and pops that are maybe only 25,000 square feet. Can we do that?
Yes, and that's something we can work into the ordinance or the ballot measure where the council could dictate minimum buildings over 50,000 square feet are subject to the tax. You can set those parameters, and we can go off of that.
And that's with the business license tax. That makes more sense to me.
Okay, so for the parcel one, it doesn't do that. So anybody that's, like, it could be undeveloped land, and they would pay the same fees per square footage as a fully developed warehouse industrial building? Basically.
Typically, yes. That's
Oh,
how it
okay.
works.
See, that's an issue.
That's not right.
Yeah, and
That's not
which is
fair.
going, yeah, it's not, yeah. Okay.
The smaller
Okay, that's
mom
good
and
to know then.
pops that are just barely surviving, I'm kind of worried about them.
No, it should be a business license tax
Yeah.
specifically to logistical industry. All right, any other directions to staff on this stuff?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before we provide further direction to staff, I would recommend that you allow the public to comment before the council provides direction.
Okay, well, let me finish if they have any more questions. Anybody have, are you guys done right now?
I got one more question. I'm thinking about what, like the reason why we're even bringing this up, and it's the effects of our roads, and I'm thinking about, say, like a truck yard, a truck lot. I mean, they're obviously bringing trucks through in and out of the city, but they don't have an actual building. But if we go with the business license and based on this, we're going based on square footage of their building size, not necessarily maybe what's developed. So is there any way to?
Yes,
Deal with
your
that?
answer is yes. And as a matter of fact, currently, when we charge RBBD, we base it 50% of the lot size because you're allowed to build the building ratio is up to 50% of the lot size. So we can actually add those kind of requirements in the ordinance if we like.
So it'll be building size or 50% of lot
If
size?
it's a truck yard, we can add those parameters
Okay.
if the council directs us to do that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's definitely more flexibility with the business tax.
All right, before we itemize our wish list, I'm gonna call for public comment. Madam Clerk, did we have a request to speak on this item?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Okay. So, number one, I think we all agreed business license tax is our direction.
That gives us more flexibility.
Number two,
November.
you have to, we're going for November of '23. Was everybody good with that or not?
Yes.
I mean, we're definitely not rushing into March.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Not by December 9th.
But I'm still curious to know about the whole
Let me backtrack.
December 7th.
The majority seems to want November, but he still has to do some research and come back with specific timelines
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
But if he comes back and says you can't do it, then I mean it's too late. Yeah, it's,
Missed December
then we missed it. So either way, I guess it's November, and then
Yeah.
we'll have to wait till
I mean, I don't want to rush
2025.
this. Yeah.
I think
So just get more clarification on the,
Election. Is there any way to confirm
You
that?
gotta educate to get 2/3 of the people to vote for it.
One, just wanted to, I'm in favor of the November election, but I had a quick discussion with Mr. Koo regarding the possibility of if there is a June possibility. I doubt there will be a June possibility, but if there is a possibility for June, I would like to possibly explore that.
I don't know if that gives enough time for
Education.
reach out, and there's no rush on this, guys. The warehouses are not going anywhere. So whether it gets done in '23 or '24, it's gonna happen. I would rather see a successful campaign because we did extended outreach and let people know this is not a tax on you, it's a tax on the warehouses, and get it passed than for it to fail. So, we don't have to decide that right this minute. We can discuss it at the next discussion as far as the timeline. What did we say? Business license, make sure it's not approaching the homes or small business guys. Was there any other specific language we wanted to include in the ballot? Did we
Yes, the
mention?
duration.
Oh, duration is no duration?
Yeah.
It's unlimited, right?
Yeah, limited.
And then the escalator as well.
I don't know about an escalator, but he can look into that. We'll look into it.
Sounds
I
good.
think we want to put in, industrial is going to be there, and then when the potential ballot statement or the argument for, we want to make sure it exempts residential and commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be, or the city and other entities will be advocating for people to pass it, but we just want to make sure it's actually in the ballot statement or.
Language, absolutely.
We've
Anything else
gotta
we
do a
wanna
lot of
add?
literature.
Well, I know Mr. Q said that we should get public comment before we start listening. To
I already
him.
did that.
Oh, we already did. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It wasn't my hearing either.
Nobody wanted to speak.
Did we miss anything, guys? I mean, it doesn't matter. That's not, has to be final right now. We can come back with, you can think of something tomorrow, and when we meet again, we'll bring it up. But I think staff has a general consensus of what we want to come back with.
To start with, what about the rate? 15,
Oh.
is it 15 and a half?
Right.
What, can you go back to that slide again? I thought that was already determined there.
But if we're gonna exempt some people, we might need more. We're taking some smaller people out.
Well, this number isn't finalized from what I was told, right? So we'll look into that finalized number and examine it
We'll
there.
review the material, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Depends
that's
who we
correct. This is,
exempt.
So-
that's,
So for clarification, it needs to be justified, right? We can't just say, should round it up to 20.
Right, I mean, it has to have a nexus, right? It has to have something you tie back to say this is how we got to where it's at.
Well, actually, in the case of this tax, it isn't like an impact fee where you have to prove it, because, the authority for imposing the tax is by the voters. This is really sort of essentially a policy reason for the tax to say this is why it's this amount, is because of this need, as opposed to sort of a legal nexus requirement. You can talk to, the city attorney can comment on that.
That's essentially correct. The limiter is the expenditure, what you can spend the money on. So let's say, for example, if the tax collects about $4 million, your costs are $4 million to do all this, that's it, you're done. But let's say you collect more than that, well, and your costs are below that, you can't spend that extra money on anything else. You
It
have
has to be
focus-
spent on roads.
Whatever's identified in the ordinance.
So it could be, say, replacing some of the intersections with concrete if we need to do that.
As long as it's within what's
Yeah.
identified in the ordinance,
Okay.
yes.
Concrete signage.
And it's not an annual deal, the money just rolls over.
Yeah, the city holds on to the money, yeah, but again, it's only pays towards those identified items.
Correct. So, based on our recommendations today, you've got some homework to go back and figure out, right? So at the next meeting, you can come back with some more figures and show us, and then we can decide, do we need to up it or not?
If we accept
Yes.
some smaller buildings.
But for clarification, the discretion is up to us.
Yes, that's correct.
So we could just, okay.
Yeah.
There is an upper limit. It can't be what the word is confiscatory, where you're basically making it impossible for them to do business. So just to be clear.
I think there's something the last thing, we've been here, we've held staff here long enough. Did you guys, you seem to want to do it where you're doing a minimum square footage and up. Is that the route you guys want to go?
Or do we want to look at their truck traffic?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say truck traffic, but more like how many bays do they have? How many trucks are running in and out of that business? I guess you can call it truck traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can have you can have a 200 square foot warehouse with, truck activity going out left and right, and a big one that only has half the amount because they're not really producing that much.
It's just the little small ones that I didn't want to see taxed.
Well, you're talking about the BPOs, the business professional officers. I'm not thinking of going after them, but they're business, yeah. I'm thinking it should be anything that's considered a logistical warehouse, whether that's a distribution and/or e-commerce.
What, do we have a definition of that?
Currently, our zoning code has a definition for high cube warehousing, and those tend to be the large warehousing e-commerce. We can look at a couple of scenarios where you have, here's how many warehouses that are over 250,000 square feet or 300,000 square feet that require the environmental EIRs because there's impacts. So we can maybe look at, here's what it looks like if you do buildings over, 200,000 square feet, buildings over 50,000 square feet. Also keep in mind that the 25 million square feet of building that's shown on the screen doesn't include probably at least an additional 8 million or so of entitled properties that are in the pipeline that are not part of this calculation.
Right.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yes.
So that's just some more homework for you to do. Go back and maybe even look at what the other cities actually did, how they labeled it. All right. Are we good for now?
Yep.
It's just a little direction for now, anyway. All right, so we're gonna move on to 13, City Council, wait a minute. Yep. Item 13, City Council Communication. Councilwoman Alva?
Thank you, Mayor. I look forward to participating in our upcoming holiday events. So I look forward to seeing our families come out and enjoy these wonderful events that our staff does a fabulous job at doing so, these large-scale events back-to-back. So we hope you all come out and are able to enjoy those. And then I also invite you to tune in or join us on our regularly scheduled council meeting where City Clerk Nancy Salazar and Councilmember David Starrab and myself get sworn in for another 4-year term on council. And those are all the comments I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rogers.
Today is Giving Tuesday, so those that are able, please make a donation to your local charity or your church or any organization you feel is worthy of your consideration. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rab.
Yes, I'd like to start off by thanking the Paris Rotary Club for inviting me to speak at their November 10th meeting. It was good to give them an update on the city of Paris, along with some of the things I do in my professional and personal life. I also had the opportunity to attend the National League of Cities last week in Kansas City. It was a great networking opportunity. Mayor Vargas attended as well. Got to meet many vendors throughout the nation and connect with many people who are looking to partner with Paris for various projects. Unfortunately, I got sick over there, so I'm a little still recovering from that. But overall, a great event. I just want to thank staff and thank Monica Martinez for facilitating that and getting all of our stuff together for that trip over to Kansas City. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to thank staff for the hike that we had last Saturday. I did attend along with Councilwoman Nava and Planning Commissioner Lopez also attended, and so many residents were there. It was just a wonderful day, wonderful weather. Just a great hike that our staff put up. For the World Cup, I'm gonna bring that up for a specific reason. I am wearing my U.S. lapel because I'm on my lapel, but the U.S. flag because U.S. did go on to the elimination rounds, so that was awesome. But I do want to bring it up because several of our staff members were asking, why don't we show the several of the games maybe on the weekend or something like that? I know the United States are going to play at 7 in the morning. I'm not saying maybe get ready for that one, but the games are usually at 7 and 11 o'clock. So if we could look at maybe which games would be good for our residents to kind of come out, and we could maybe have a little thing, maybe a giveaway of soccer balls or something. I do want to thank our many of our staff for participating in the No Shave November. I did go a whole month. I know the mayor's gone a couple of years and seemed to keep it. It's a new look. I know Deputy Manager Reyna got started late, but he caught up to everybody. Assistant supervisor, manager, Arsenio, assistant director, did a fabulous job sticking with it, and I saw Councilman Rabb start late, but he caught up as well too. But it seems something silly, but for a serious cause, it's for men's health. I think it's maybe my first year of doing it for honor of my father, who's kind of going through some health issues, but I think everything's going to work out at the beginning of December. So thank you for everyone doing that. And I also look forward to all the holiday events. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to just be brief and just mention one thing I've been failing to bring up to staff the last couple of meetings in regards to the Mark Berger project. That's the one that the consultant is Mike Nagar for the southwest corner of Paris and Ramon Expressway. We didn't mention anything about the condition of having the commercial end being built consecutively with the warehouse. I'd like to direct staff to have them put that in the planning notes, what conditions that needs to be added in there. This representative for this applicant did the Ferguson project, and that was many years ago and was promised commercial end. To this day, we still don't have commercial end. I don't want to let that happen again. So I think you understand my direction here, right? Got it. All right. I don't want to keep going in the interest of time, so we'll bring that to item 14, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. The tree lighting ceremony and Winter Wonderland events will be held this Friday, December 2nd.
Rain or shine?
As of now, yes, for now, yes. From 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. and Saturday, December 3rd, from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. The events are free. There will be snow, performances, vendors, activities for kids, and much more. Also, the annual Christmas parade will be held on Saturday, December 19th at 10 a.m. in the downtown Paris.
December 10th. The Christmas parade, December 10th.
Yes, Christmas parade, December 10th.
Okay, it says 19. There's a typo. Thank you. December 10th. I am sorry about that. So it'll be held on Saturday, December 10th at 10 a.m. in downtown Paris. Any parade entries can be submitted, and the entrance form is available at the Paris Civic Rec platform. And finally, the City of Paris has been awarded the 2022 Project of the Year Award for the Enchanted Hills Park Project from the Southern California chapter of the American Public Works Association. So congratulations to the community services and all that participated and were part of that project. That concludes my report. When is the breakfast with Santa?
The 17th.
Okay. And the breakfast with Santa is on December 17th.
Have to give Jordan all the dates. He'll be in the room.
Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody. We didn't go too late. Item 15 is our adjournment. We'll see you next meeting.